Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for that one person who responded. I trust that you're all doing as well as we can be under the circumstances, and thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you find my presentation hopefully as interesting and entertaining as all the previous ones, and hopefully the word is getting out that what might first be construed as being a rather dull topic are quite the opposite, and probably worth the 30 minutes or an hour and a half, depends how I feel. And yes, I did joke that my aim this evening was to try and get more attendees than Mike Hogarth, but I think that's not going to happen, so we'll carry on. This presentation is a reflection on what is important and what differentiates us as Masons. So perhaps less about providing a daily advancement in Masonic knowledge, but more on serving as a reminder for us all of the importance of etiquette and protocol. And I've tried not to make this a do and don't session. That's certainly not what Staying Engaged is all about. It's to provide a guide and a reminder of the importance of etiquette and protocol in all that we do. So if I do any do-dos, I don't mean to do any do-dos, okay? They're unavoidable in some situations, but we'll see how we go with that. That's never my intention. So the topic is etiquette and protocol. The full topic heading is how the etiquette and protocol passed down over many generations assist us in the way we conduct ourselves when visiting and attending a lodge meeting and the festive board, both as an acting officer and a regular member of the province. Fantastic, snappy, short little heading there. But with such a broad topic, as requested, I've kept the focus mainly on acting officers, but also on the majority of the features that we'll cover apply to all brethren, no matter what stage we are in our journey. I do try not to overuse PowerPoint normally, but with a topic such as this, it's unavoidable, so please bear with me. So much of the protocol and consequences of failing to follow the rules of etiquette are covered in the Book of Constitutions, together with guidance and updates from the Board of General Purposes. Another source of etiquette and protocol is both found and highly recommended in the book, Masonic Etiquette Today, by Graham Redman. So let's start with a couple of definitions, just so that we can really get to grips with what etiquette and protocol actually mean. This is from Collins. Etiquette can be described as the conventional rules of social behaviour, the customary behaviour of members of a profession or organisation towards each other, and the unwritten code governing this. And protocol is described as the formal etiquette and code of behaviour, precedents and procedure for ceremonies. So under etiquette, we've got how we interact with each other and the general understanding of what the rules of engaging are. And protocol is all about our ritual and ceremony and how that is conducted. And of course, the golden rule that we all know and we all stand by in life and in Masonry: treat others as you would wish to be treated yourself. Without having centuries-old rules, regulations, accepted standards of etiquette and set protocols, our meetings will quickly turn into an unrecognisable event. Protocol is the essence of Masonry. It's what keeps our ceremonies uniform and regular. Much of the essence of the etiquette within our order is simply underpinning good manners, respectfulness to others, and to tradition. And I say again, the adage, treat others as you would wish to be treated yourself, never fails as a golden rule. Of course, the exact same principles apply to our dealings in our private lodge as they do if you become one of the few to be appointed an acting officer of this province. As an acting officer, we are always on duty as such, and a key part of our role is to offer understanding, support and empathy when we visit a lodge, all key elements of the etiquette our position expects. Very often, a private lodge will only get the opportunity to fully engage with the provincial team once a year. It is therefore an important moment and highlight for all who attend. And it could be that a meeting you are attending will be the only chance that lodge has had in its year to engage in such a way with the province. As with all visiting, we undertake including as a private brother, the same principle of etiquette applies, such as we book in with a secretary in good time, we confirm our dietary needs, and we advise whom any friends may be in the lodge. All basic stuff, but this is part of the etiquette. Most importantly, we are charged to make it memorable for the very best of reasons, leaving only with the words, "Happy meet again," ringing true. Prior to us joining Freemasonry, we are interviewed and challenged over our conduct and beliefs. Those brethren that proposed us make certain that we have the propensity to both respond to and respect the rules and structure of any organisation we may belong to. Our adherence to them is enforced as we travel through the various degrees of the order and are fully reinforced in the ancient charges we respond to when we become master of the lodge for the first time, and of course which we commit to if we go through the chair again. Every step of our journey we are exposed to a new protocol, ceremony or ritual in the various degrees we pass through, each stage leading up to another level. Every step lays a foundation of knowledge and understanding, giving us the best chance of enjoying the journey. Every step reinforces our compliance and adherence to the standards of etiquette and protocol on which we all depend. Every step is made a success by the preceptors of our private lodges that do so much of the work in preparing us for higher office. You could say unsung heroes, including when we become eligible for promotion to a provincial office. They reinforce the principles of etiquette and protocol, together with any local traditions that are specific to our private lodge. Some, for instance, will have a dress code that is black tie and dinner jacket. Some lodges have the deacons act out their role at the opening and closing. Local protocol specific to our mother lodge that always needs to be respected and adhered to. I believe that part of the beauty of our hobby is how the relative slow burn of progress aids and assists us in fully understanding the degrees and protocol relative to the level we have reached, along with the responsibility we gain in the offices we take in our private lodge. The preceptors, mentors, lodge of instruction events and application of continuity of tradition by our worshipful masters are the real engines of our order in ensuring we uphold the etiquette and protocol our order rests upon. So let's quickly run through some of the key do's and don'ts, said I wouldn't, but I am, of etiquette and protocol that apply to being an acting officer, but which also apply in very great regard to our activities in our private lodge. So what is the primary protocol of an acting provincial officer? As an acting officer, you become a representative of the province at all meetings, provincial meetings and special events, and therefore our attention to etiquette and protocol is very important. And we always should be mindful of this and conduct ourselves in an appropriate manner. A point of protocol that can be confusing is that we are not the official representative of the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master during our year. Only the provincial senior and junior grand wardens when presiding at an installation meeting and a visiting officer when attending on an official visit act as such. A primary duty and to a degree obligation as an acting officer is to support the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master, the Deputy Provincial Grand Master, the Assistant Provincial Grand Masters and the provincial senior and junior wardens by our presence at lodge installation meetings and other special events throughout the province. A key part of the role is to act as escorts for the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master at provincial events and installation meetings. As in the meetings we have in our private lodges, these events are under the direction of the Director of Ceremonies, be it the Provincial Grand Director of Ceremonies, apparently a nice chap, the Provincial Deputy Grand Director of Ceremonies, and or the Provincial Assistant Grand Director of Ceremonies. A truly wonderful part of the role and etiquette of an acting officer is that we have the opportunity and duty to visit as many lodges in the province as our time and circumstances permit. I often wonder if the brethren of the province are aware of just how large the sheer scale and size of our province. Our province covers a vast area and borders many other provinces. When we become an acting officer, we get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to plan to visit as many locations as we can in a year. And brethren, as some of us know, we have some real gems out there. The same applies, of course, to all brethren of the province. Now, I only discovered visiting after becoming master for the first time. And worshipful brother Stan McCoy, who I'm sure some of you may know, God bless him, took me under his wing. So I would say, don't wait, brethren. When we get back, subject to any temporary rules applying to our meetings, let's all make that extra effort to visit locations, perhaps some we didn't know existed. You don't have to wait for your own lodge meetings to visit others. So just how big is this province? And I've decided it's time to put some cheese into the presentation, so bear with me, brethren. Here we go. All aboard for a quick trip around our wide and varied province, stopping at Ulster, Atherstone, Birmingham Yenton, Birmingham 7th Street, Birmingham Wretham Road, Coes Hill, Coventry, Henley and Arden, Leamington Spa, Nuneaton, Redditch, Rugby, Shipston on Stour, Solihull Knoll, Solihull Silhill, Burston, Dallas Burston Polo Club. Those in the front row, rattle your jewellery. Stratford upon Avon, Warwick Alderson House, Warwick Guyscliffe, and many other venues that we use for special provincial events. The joy and pleasure you gain is immeasurable, and it is a key part of the protocol that we have as acting officers to try and do as much as we can in our special year. The chance to visit so many of our fantastic lodges we have in the province is something you will never forget. But most importantly, let us all remember that a lodge is not a building. It's the brethren that make it a lodge. And you will meet many wonderful and excellent masons from the very important, such as our foundation stones in the form of our new entered apprentices, through to the most senior masons, past and present, in the province. As acting officers, we have the additional responsibility of endorsing and demonstrating the qualities that differentiate what it is to be a Freemason, not just in our own lodge, but when visiting other lodges in the province and when at events with the general public. The principles of etiquette and protocol are also foundation stones, and they underpin all of what we do in our hobby and in our private lodges. And it is a primary responsibility of acting officers to demonstrate their importance in the way that we conduct ourselves when representing the province, both in lodge and at a festive board. So I hope, therefore, that you're all sat upright, nice straight back, no crossed legs, hands on your knees, and you're paying proper attention. And I can see you all. Sit up straight, Bob. Now that's got your attention. So, for the purpose of this presentation, let's look at the following key points for etiquette and protocol, particularly for acting officers, but of course this does apply across all brethren. And I'm desperately, and I mean this, desperately trying not to make this, I'm telling you what to do and do and don't do this. What I'm trying to do in this presentation, as I said at the start, is just a reminder of some of the subtle things in our etiquette and protocol that makes all the difference to how we represent the province, both as private members and as acting officers. So we'll quickly run through the dress code, what we do when we plan to attend a meeting, what we do when we arrive at a meeting, so the arrival, processing in and out of a lodge room, doing the preparation to respond to a salute, what happens with visitors' greetings, what our demeanour should be in lodge, and our demeanour when at the festive board, all part of the etiquette and responsibility we have. So very quickly, dress code, what do I wear? Let's see if that's going to work again. Yes. As an acting officer, we wear a morning suit, and it's worth checking those charity shops that Mike told us about last week in Ulster. But if you're unable to acquire one, a dark suit is acceptable. You do not need a tailcoat unless you are appointed as a Deputy Provincial Grand Director of Ceremonies. We wear the current provincial tie, We wear our Royal Arch jewel. We wear, if you're a member, we wear our permanent centenary jewel and our Festival 2023 jewel, if you're eligible to do so. And no other jewels are required to be worn. You may, however, wear your own lodge jewel, only when attending your private lodge. And we wear our provincial colour. So how do we know what to do as an acting officer? Well, before any specific event, just as in a private lodge before a special meeting, we rehearse. And we rehearse the ceremonial, including processing into and out of a lodge. Nothing is ever left to chance. The standards that we try to maintain means that we do rehearse, and if we're not happy, we'll just do a little bit extra to make sure we can get to the standard. That standard is only right when the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master is content and gives us the thumbs up that we've met the standard. We always want to exceed it, of course. Warwickshire does have a very enviable reputation for accurate and perfectly executed ritual and ceremonial, our protocol. If we become an acting officer, the baton of trust placed in us by the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master to continue that tradition is a very high honour indeed. So, the critical part of etiquette as an acting officer is to attend and enjoy the rehearsals. And if we cannot do so, to send a quick apology to the Provincial DC so that we can arrange a stand-in if required. Sadly, on some occasions, and only if we can't do anything in the short term, if you cannot make the rehearsal, I may have to ask you not to join the ceremonial on the day that we have the ceremony. There's nothing personal in that, and we always try to avoid that because circumstances happen. People work, all sorts of things aren't they? The key point of etiquette here is that when we plan to attend an event, just as in a private lodge, it requires us all to make sure we have prepared as well as we can. We all know that feeling of not wishing to let the side down. So how do you know where and when to visit as an acting officer? Well, just as is in the provincial yearbook, a list is issued by the provincial office of every installation and special event that is currently planned. And this list is updated during the year to show any additions, such as banner dedications, any centenaries, special long service presentations, etc., etc., etc. A primary responsibility that falls under the heading of etiquette is to check the dates of the various meetings that you're already committed to if you're in orders, other orders, as a member. Because this allows you to ensure that your commitments do not clash, and wherever possible, you can prioritise your attendance in support of the province, thus giving you time to contact any orders where you may need to miss a meeting. It helps prevent any last-minute changes if you suddenly realise you're due to go into the warden's chair on the day that you said you're going to visit somewhere else. It happens regularly. We do not necessarily show the presiding officer on every list that's issued. The key is really to choose the lodge that you wish to attend. You've already received preferment as an acting officer, and we do not need to prove anything more by trying to be as visible as possible at every meeting, for instance, that the Provincial Grand Master attends. Not that we should boycott him at all, of course. Choosing a lodge that may be going through a period of having low membership is another good way of selecting where to visit. And it's another example of the etiquette of doing what's right. Your support in such meetings is always greatly appreciated. And again, you can check such detail of membership in the yearbook, or you may even receive an email from the province, which will be calling for some special support and highlighting opportunities to visit. How do you attend? Well, we also receive at the start of the season a file that gives you the details of the secretary to contact for every lodge in the province. This is a very important protocol in that you need to send an email to the secretary at least 5 days, if possible, before the meeting, confirming your desire to attend and if you are wishing to stay for the festive board. This obviously applies in our private lodges as well. The sooner we can do it, so it's just an important part of etiquette so that the lodge can do the planning. You also, as an acting officer, need to send an email to the escorting DC, and our details are also on the list, just to confirm your attendance. We're not booking you in, brethren, but we just need to know if you're coming, because this enables us to plan our columns and the seating requirements for the grand officers and acting provincial officers that are attending, and also to prepare the salutes, because another important part of the etiquette is that it might be that the lodge DC, not the escorting DC, will be required to handle one or two of the salutes. And the sooner we know this, the better. And it's only good etiquette to give him such notice as possible. It also allows him to discuss the same with the escorting DC in good time if he has any issues. So, put your hand up if you have ever been or are a lodge secretary. Okay, dokes. So much of etiquette in our order is in respect to how we communicate with our lodges. Some misconstrue the role of secretary as a private secretary, and therefore, to assist with the protocol, you are expected to attend and dine, and you need to tell me as well if you cannot make it. It's perhaps one of the key parts of our individual responsibility to ensure that we do respond to our secretaries in a timely manner when planning a meeting. It's an important part of the etiquette. We all know it, but the sooner we can make sure that is maintained, that we do respond in a timely manner, the better. And I can see quite a few of the secretaries almost nodding their heads off. As provincial DC, I've had brethren leave me voicemails to ask if I can change their meal to a fish at a provincial event, or asking me to book them in, but they might be late as they're having a haircut, which for me is a bit of a, I wouldn't like that one anyway. An escorting DC has enough to do without some extra duty. So the important part there is the etiquette is, and also the protocol is that you're responsible for making sure you book in, exactly as we would do if we were visiting a private lodge to give them the opportunity. All basic stuff, isn't it, really, brethren? So attending the meeting, some key elements of protocol and etiquette. What do? Well, on arrival, why don't we wear a smile? There's a good one. Why don't we forget our troubles and look forward to a very happy time that we're about to enjoy in the company of brethren and lodges we may never have had the chance to meet or attend previously. Although we're provincial officers, we never forget we are visiting a private lodge. It is their meeting, and if an installation, it's a very important part of their year. The lodge may meet 5 times a year. We may have seen 10 such meetings in the previous few months. But every meeting is special and will have had a large amount of investment in time and effort by the brethren that are due to run the meeting. And for some, this will be a daunting time, as often it is their first time of doing the installation ceremony. We should make our presence supportive, never judgmental. They'll be worried enough with a ruler or representative of the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master in attendance and a provincial DC strutting his stuff. So we sign the visitors book. The escorting DC will create a space in the book for you to sign in, separate to the general visitors. We introduce ourselves to the Brother Secretary, Worshipful Master, and of course the escorting DC. Sometimes circumstances happen, and changes in circumstances happen, and you might be asked by the lodge if you would like to do the response to the visitor's toast. And at this point, you need to respectfully decline, but please feel free to direct the person who's asking you to the escorting DC for confirmation, so you do not appear rude or disrespectful. I'll cover that again in a moment. Forms of address. An important part of etiquette is how we address the senior members of our order. As a courtesy, we refer to the ruler, present or past, any grand officer, and the presiding officer as sir. It's just a very nice part of our etiquette, and it's important that we maintain that. And even if we may know them personally, privately, we should always call them sir when we're in the lodge environment. The same applies in any correspondence we may send. It is Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master. It is Deputy Provincial Grand Master, Very Worshipful Brother Christopher John Rogers. It is Assistant Provincial Grand Master, etc. So simple things make a major difference, and it's important we maintain those. And obviously the use of letter writing taken over by WhatsApp, taken over by Messenger, taken over by email. It means that there's an opportunity for that to slip, and we shouldn't really let that happen because it's an important part of our order. The protocol of processing in and out, I'll try and get through this as quick as I can for you, but it's an important part of what we do, particularly in Warwickshire. In Warwickshire, we process into lodge when a ruler is present. And the ruler is the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master, the Deputy Provincial Grand Master, or Assistant Provincial Grand Master. If a representative of the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master is presiding, they do not process in at the start. But they do, though, have the courtesy extended to them of processing out of the lodge. Other provinces may do this differently, and again, local protocol can apply in masonry. Processing in, the acting officers, you're all sat in the lodge room in rank order in the northeast part of the lodge. The escorting DC will arrange the seating and you will know where to sit at the outset. On some occasions, a name tag will be on the seat, but not always. The lodge process in, the Worshipful Master welcomes visitors, appoints any temporary officers, reads fire regulations, and the opening ode is sung. So they're the basic parts of protocol that they should do at the start. The escorting DC then bangs on the door and enters, unless you're an ADC on your first outing and the lodge carries on and opens without you. Then you end up banging on the door, doing an impersonation of Fred Flintstone, trying to get Wilma's attention. Won't tell you who it was, but Ralph Cooper never lived it down. And he requests the Worshipful Master's permission to form columns to escort the ruler into the lodge room. Sometimes the lack of attending officers means that we invite pass ranks to also join the escort. Excuse me. When asked to do so, you rise in as orderly a fashion as possible and file out of the room. Again, in Warwickshire, we don't have swinging of arms. Obviously, we don't talk when we're walking out of the lodge room. And we keep going until the end of the line is through the door. That way we don't have a scrum by the main door. Little things, part of the etiquette, it makes a big difference. The DC will then pull the door over and ask you to form up in rank order, senior ranks to the rear. And if you find yourself at the head of the column, such as a steward, you need to pay attention because you will be at the front and everybody else will be following your lead. There's no differential between an acting rank and pass rank when we form the columns. If you are a newly appointed acting junior Grand Deacon and a past senior Grand Deacon is also in the column, his status in holding a higher rank places him in a more senior position in the column and therefore nearer the presiding officer. But for expediency, the protocol for when salutes are given after minutes is that normally only the acting provincial officers will be named. You enter when asked to do so, led by the DC, who moves off to the right so you can proceed down the lodge in two columns, keeping in step with a brother in front of you and in line with a brother opposite you. And we don't look down. Generally speaking, our feet are at the end of our legs and they're not going to go anywhere without us, hopefully. We halt, we count to two, turn face inwards, hands by our sides, head up, looking straight ahead. And the ruler then passes through the column. I'm sure you've all seen this many times, but it's worth just mentioning. And receives the gavel from the Worshipful Master in readiness to open their lodge. A ruler has the right to open any lodge in the province and demand entry. Once the ruler has taken the chair, the provincial DC will fold the column down from the rear. First, any grand officers that processed in will file down, followed by the provincial officers. We do this in unison again with the brother opposite. A key part of our protocol is that it is seamless and precise without being too military. You step forward, halt, count two, turn in unison with the brother facing, and both step off with your left foot, another bit of the protocol, in unison, halting at the end of the column in front of the Worshipful Master's chair. You do a court bow to the ruler. As we all know, this is a head nod. It's not as if we're doing a bow for an encore. We amaze what we see. And then you turn left and you go back to your chairs and you remain standing until we've invited to sit by the ruler. It's all smooth and precise. We do rehearse it, but it's a very nice part of what we do in Warwickshire. We process out on all other occasions, including when the provincial senior junior grand wardens are presiding, unless the ruler or the representative specifically advises us that their wish is to do otherwise. After the risings and visitors' greetings, you will be invited by the provincial DC to rise and form the columns to escort the presiding officer and any grand officers from the lodge room. And this is the reverse of the column in. And again, we need to form up with as little fuss as possible with senior ranks to the east. The ruler salutes the worshipful master on behalf of us all, and he passes through the columns, which then fold down in unison and in step out of the door. At some of the more formal events, the escorting provincial DC will call you up in rank order to form the column out, and this is done with precise Warwickshire workings. A key part of the rehearsals we undertake is to make sure we get this protocol right, and that the choreography, whilst being impressive in its simplicity, works like clockwork and is seamless. And it also signals the effort and commitment of those present when this is done to what we would call to standard. Giving the response to the salute to the province, an important etiquette is to thank brethren that are more junior than you or us for any salute that we may receive. You may be the most senior acting officer present other than the DC. And so it's important, and this applies to provincial officers, acting or otherwise, if it's important that you are familiar with the correct delivery of the response to the salutation. It's very nice when it's done correctly, and that includes making sure that we've recognised if the worshipful master or the wardens are provincial officers, so that we don't cause any offence by mentioning them. Visitors' greetings. As an acting officer, the protocol is that we do not bring greetings from our private lodges. This is after the risings. We are there in support of the province and presiding officer in attendance. You may, however, rise and join any brother that brings greetings from a lodge that you are a member. And the presiding officer will generally bring greetings from Warwickshire Install Masters Lodge, number 4538. So our etiquette and demeanour when in lodge. We should always try to stay in the now. I know it's difficult at times, but it's an important part of paying attention to what's going on. Try and maintain our posture. I sound like a school teacher, never was. And paying attention to the events in the lodge. As when visiting in a private capacity, an important etiquette is to not offer prompts or attempt to assist unless we're specifically asked to do so. Most lodges, and normally the escorting DC, will check this out just to make sure that they've got a brother who's able to do the prompting in the lodge room. As acting officers, just as senior members in a lodge, there's no hiding place, and we're normally on full view. So a key protocol really is that we need to make sure that we do know our signs, and we do our signs as well as we can, including the step, which, as we know, can often be forgotten. We know that when and when not to resume the sign. In the third, we know when to hold a sign, when to use the sign of fidelity or the sign of reverence. All are important elements of the protocol that make our ceremonies as regular as we can make them. A key etiquette is shown in the wish of the province that we take extra care of new members, and it speaks volumes when a lodge automatically nominates a brother to join any brethren that have had to leave a ceremony until they are eligible to stay for the part that they're entitled to. Sometimes an acting provincial officer has assisted with this, but only after the presiding officer has given his approval. And demeanour at the festive board, we're nearly there. Once we've left the lodge room after the visitors' greetings are concluded, we can use the time to check where we are sitting at the festive board. If there's any doubt, we can ask the escorting DC for assistance. We do not sit by right at the top table. The presiding officer and or representative of the Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master does. The escorting DC may also, but not on every occasion. Some lodges like to place the acting officers throughout the sprigs, throughout the dining room, so that they can get the opportunity to meet the brethren of the lodge, which is a nice touch. Thankfully, the days of senior brethren challenging or wine taking are over. In years gone by, I understand that a junior brother could have been targeted by the more senior brothers, rendering him legless by the time the wine takings were concluded. Perhaps happy days, I don't know. But we should retain as much decorum as possible without dampening the enjoyment the festive board brings in its reward for our labour. As in every lodge meeting, remaining respectful when formal toasts are given is another important etiquette. even if sometimes they may be taking longer than some of us may wish, but that is it. We're in a private lodge and it's their special night. If we have the opportunity to give a toast, it's also important to remember the code of etiquette, that it does not become an opportunity for perhaps coarse or rude language. Not that we have that problem in Warwickshire, but it's in the book, so I thought I'd mention it. Nothing wrong with having some fun, of course. I'm the senior warden of Lord Traveller's Lodge, and we certainly do not lack in humour. And my ritual usually generates a few laughs, I can tell you, Reverend. So responding to communications from Provincial Office, again, this is an important part of the etiquette, and we should respond to any communications as quickly as possible. Provincial Grand Secretary specifically asked me to put this slide in, so if you've got any queries, please go to him. Even if we have verbally signed our attendance, our intent to attend a forthcoming event, we must formally send a response, either by traditional means, if requested, or via the new online booking channel that is proving so successful. The planning of major events will resemble trying to complete a Rubik's Cube with one hand tied behind your back if we don't have replies or know whom is attending. And as we know, this is exactly the same for secretaries. So that's a key part of the protocol to make sure that we follow that method. The Provincial Office keeps communications to the minimum and pertinent. So when we receive one, it's always worth checking and responding to. There's going to be another session, I don't call it a session, do I? There's going to be another staying engaged presentation by the Provincial Grand Secretary and the Provincial Communications Officer soon, all about the use of social media, which I think is going to be really, really interesting, both from a private point of view and also from the point of view of our private lodges. So it's worth looking out for that. Of course, etiquette and the use of social media is now a very big topic. I always think twice before hitting the send button. Very dangerous if you had a glass of red wine, as we all know. And if in doubt, I don't send it. Offence can easily be caused by misconstrued comment taken out of context in the use of social media. So that's another dynamic that other generations never had to concern themselves with. So, in summary, the principles of etiquette and protocol have been passed down over many generations. They are the cement that bond together our ceremonial and standards of conduct, especially when visiting and attending a lodge and the festive ball, both as an acting officer and a regular member of the province. I've tried in my presentation to give you a guide to some of the key areas of etiquette and protocol that we have a responsibility to uphold, especially as an acting officer. The truth is, I've only scratched the surface in my presentation today. Our continued adherence, however, to the established etiquette and protocol is recognition that we are all here with one view on how to conduct ourselves. We all know that special feeling that when the door closes and our meetings begin, we're all together in one happy environment. And as the head of a certain order regularly reminds us, we're not properly dressed if we're not wearing a smile. He's referring to the Holy Royal Arch, of course, but it equally applies to all across our hobby. And so, whilst we've all been in the grip of the effects of the COVID-19 virus, perhaps along with the structure, respect and etiquette, protocol and ritual that we enjoy and miss, the single major reason as to why we miss our masonry so much is all the laughter and camaraderie and support that we have in our hobby. Our enjoyment of it is the key to its infectious hold it has on us all. Spike Milligan is recognised for bringing a certain poem entitled "Smiling is Infectious" to our notice. And I think it could be describing masonry and the job we have to do once we all get back. Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu. When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too. I passed around the corner and someone saw my grin. When he smiled, I realised I passed it on to him. I thought about that smile, then I realized its worth. A single smile, just like mine, could travel round the earth. So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected. Let's start an epidemic quick and get the world infected. So until our next happy meeting, brethren, I'd like to thank you all very much for your attention. I hope I've given sufficient coverage here for some of the key elements of protocol and etiquette. As I say, the intention is never to do a telling, and I'm telling you so presentation. The book Masonic Etiquette Today by Graham Redman is a fantastic reference book to have. Just like to thank you all. If there are any questions at all with this topic, please do not hesitate to drop me an email. You can get that either through the online, the website. I'm sure my contact details are on there. So thank you for your attention. Etiquette and protocol, excellence in life. Thank you, brethren.